The mansion stood like a fortress, its towering walls and iron gates guarding not only wealth but also loneliness. Inside, every hallway was polished to perfection, every room adorned with luxury, yet silence hung heavy, suffocating the air. At the heart of this silence was a young boy, no older than 6, whose lips had never formed a word. He sat by the window, his small fingers clutching a worn teddy bear, staring out as if the world outside held the voice he could never release. His father, the billionaire, moved through life with the weight of grief pressing against his shoulders. He had buried himself in work, deals, and empires, but every night when he returned to the empty halls, the absence of his wife and the silence of his son gnawed at him. It was on one such morning that she arrived. Dressed in a plain maid's uniform, her eyes lowered with humility, she was introduced by the head housekeeper as a new hire. The billionaire barely spared her a glance, his mind already consumed with meetings and numbers. She bowed her head, her voice soft, assuring them she would work quietly. No one noticed the way her gaze lingered on the boy sitting in the corner of the room, her heart tightening as she recognized the loneliness etched on his small face. Days passed, and she blended into the rhythm of the mansion. Dusting shelves, arranging flowers, serving meals, always silent, always unnoticed. But when no one was watching, her attention drifted to the boy. She saw the way he avoided eye contact, the way his small fingers fidgeted endlessly, the way silence seemed like a chain wrapped around his fragile being. She couldn't stop herself from offering small gestures of kindness. A gentle smile when she passed by. A toy left subtly near his chair, a whisper of encouragement, even if he did not answer. One afternoon, she found him sitting on the floor of the playroom, blocks scattered around him. He was building towers only to knock them down again, over and over, frustration flickering in his eyes. She knelt beside him, picking up a block, her movements slow and careful as though approaching a frightened bird. She built a small house with the pieces, then looked at him with a smile that reached her eyes. For a moment he froze, his chest rising and falling with unease. But then curiosity tugged at him. His tiny hand reached out, placing a block beside hers. The soundless bond formed like a spark. They spent more afternoons together, the maid and the boy, building castles, drawing shapes, and creating stories without words. She hummed softly as they worked, filling the silence with melodies that soothed him. Every time his lips trembled as though trying to form a sound, her heart leaped. She encouraged him with gentle nods, never pushing, always waiting. What no one knew was that beneath her uniform and quiet demeanor, she was not merely a maid. She carried secrets heavier than the mansion's walls, secrets that had driven her into hiding. Secrets that made her determined to unlock the silence that imprisoned the boy. For she was not just there to clean, she was there to heal. The boy's small victories went unnoticed by most in the mansion, but not by her. Every flicker of his eyes, every hesitant movement of his lips, she caught with the precision of someone who had been waiting her entire life for this chance. She knew the path to his voice would not be easy, but she also knew it was possible. In the quiet moments when others were away, she introduced him to games that seemed simple, but each was carefully designed. She clapped softly to rhythms, encouraged him to mimic with his hands, and showed him pictures, letting him point and gesture until a faint sound escaped his throat. When it did, she smiled as though the sun itself had risen in the room, but her heart raced with fear each time she worked with him. One mistake, one moment of suspicion, and her disguise could crumble. She could not allow anyone to know who she really was. At night, in the solitude of her tiny servant's room, she opened a worn notebook filled with medical diagrams and speech therapy exercises. Her fingers traced the pages as tears slipped down her cheeks. This was who she had once been, before lies and accusations destroyed her career, before her license was stripped and her reputation ruined. Once she had been Dr. Elise, respected, trusted, loved for her ability to heal children who had lost their voices. Now she was only a maid in a billionaire's house, hiding from a world that had turned against her. The billionaire, though distant, began to notice changes. One evening, as he walked past the playroom, he paused. He heard something he had not heard in years, a faint hum. His son sat on the floor, his lips moving slightly as the maid clapped a gentle rhythm. The boy wasn't speaking yet, but there was intent, effort, hope. The father's heart stumbled in his chest. He gripped the doorframe, his eyes fixed on the scene. But before he could enter, his phone buzzed. Business called him back into the world of deals and power, dragging him away from the fragile miracle happening just steps away. The boy, however, was not the only one softening. As days turned into weeks, the maid's presence wove a quiet warmth into the house. The staff noticed the boy no longer hid in corners as often. They noticed he reached out for toys, laughed softly, even if no words followed. The billionaire noticed too, though he tried to dismiss it as coincidence. Yet every time he saw his son's small hand in hers, something stirred in him, something he thought had been buried with his wife. Still, suspicion gnawed at the back of his mind. There was something about her eyes too knowing, her gestures too practiced. She moved like a woman trained for more than cleaning floors. And though he told himself it didn't matter, deep down he knew he would one day demand the truth. For now, though, he let the charade continue, unaware that the walls around his silent son were already beginning to break, and the woman he thought was a maid was about to change everything. The breakthrough came on a rainy afternoon. The boy sat cross-legged on the rug, his teddy bear tucked under one arm while the maid gently arranged flashcards in front of him. Each card carried a simple picture: sun, ball, cat, car. She pointed and exaggerated the sounds with her lips, her eyes encouraging him to follow. He frowned, his small fingers curling in frustration, but she placed her hand softly over his and whispered, "You can." The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder rolling in the distance, but inside the room there was only quiet concentration. He touched the card with the picture of a ball, his lips parting. A faint, breathy sound escaped, barely a syllable but enough to make her eyes widen. "Bah," he whispered again, trembling as though the effort had cost him everything. She froze, her heart thundering in her chest, tears instantly clouding her vision. For the first time, he had spoken. Her hands shook as she applauded softly, beaming at him. "Yes, bah! Ball!" she said, her voice breaking with joy. The boy blinked, startled by her tears, but then something unfamiliar crossed his face, a smile, small and fragile, yet real. He tried again, louder this time, and the sound filled the room like a miracle. What neither of them realized was that they were being watched. The billionaire had returned earlier than expected, intending to confront the strange closeness between his son and the maid. But as he stepped into the doorway, the sight rooted him to the ground. His son, his silent, unreachable boy, was speaking. The billionaire's throat tightened painfully, his vision blurring as emotions surged like a tide he could not control. He pressed a hand to the doorframe, his breath shallow as the word replayed in his ears. Bah, bah. His son had a voice. He remained hidden, unwilling to break the fragile spell. The maid encouraged the boy to repeat the sound, gently guiding him through shapes of other words. Her voice trembled with hope and love, not ambition. The billionaire's suspicion warred with awe. This was no ordinary maid. Her every movement carried knowledge, precision, the touch of someone trained to heal. That night he sat in his study long after everyone had gone to bed, the sound of "bah" echoing endlessly in his mind. He pulled out his laptop and searched through the files of new staff his housekeeper had hired. The maid's name, her history, it all seemed too vague, too clean. No past, no records beyond a few menial jobs. His instincts screamed that she was hiding something. And yet, even as suspicion burned, gratitude gnawed at him too. For the first time in years, his son had spoken. Could he condemn the woman who made that possible? Meanwhile, in the quiet of her room, she sat hunched over her notebook, tears dripping onto the pages. Tonight had been a victory, but it also terrified her. The walls of her disguise were crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. She knew the billionaire had noticed, knew one day he would confront her. She could only pray that when that moment came, he would see her heart before her lies. The storm that had lingered outside seemed to find its way into the mansion the following evening. The billionaire stood in his study, the maid's worn notebook open on his desk, its pages filled with diagrams, speech exercises, and notes that revealed her true identity. His jaw tightened, fury and disbelief surging in equal measure. She was no ordinary maid. She was someone with training, knowledge, and a secret that she had buried beneath an apron. When she entered the room with a tray of tea, she froze instantly at the sight of her notebook in his hands. Her face drained of color, her fingers tightening around the tray until it shook. Slowly, she set it down, her lips parting as though to speak, but no sound came. "Who are you, really?" His voice was low, edged with betrayal. He slammed the notebook shut, his eyes narrowing. "You walked into my house disguised as a maid, but this is not the work of a servant. This is the work of a doctor who lied her way into my son's life." Her eyes filled with tears, her chest heaving as she tried to find her voice. "Please," she whispered, stepping forward. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" His words cut like a blade. "That you used my son as your experiment? That you deceived me? Do you know what it feels like to watch him, after years of silence, finally speak, and then to discover it was because of a stranger's lies?" Her tears spilled freely now, streaming down her cheeks. "I never lied to hurt him. I never came here to use him. I came because I had no choice. I was once a doctor, yes, a speech therapist. I dedicated my life to helping children like your son. But I was accused of malpractice, false charges born of jealousy and greed. They ruined me. My license was taken, my career destroyed, my name dragged through the mud. No one would hire me, no one would trust me. I lost everything." Her voice cracked, her shoulders shaking. "When I came here, I swore I would just work quietly, unnoticed. But then I saw your son. I saw the pain in his silence, the way he longed to speak. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't walk away. So yes, I hid the truth. But not for myself. For him." The billionaire's heart raged against itself, torn between anger and the undeniable truth. He wanted to throw her out, to call her every name that rose to his lips. Yet the image of his son whispering "Bah" replayed in his mind again and again. He gripped the notebook so tightly his knuckles turned white, his chest heaving. From the doorway, a small voice cut through the storm. "Duh!" Both of them turned sharply. The boy stood there, clutching his teddy bear, his lips trembling as he tried again. "Da." His voice was soft, broken, but clear enough to shatter every wall around them. The notebook slipped from the billionaire's hand and fell to the floor. He stumbled toward his son, his heart breaking and healing all at once. Behind him, the maid's tears fell harder, her secret fully exposed, but her purpose undeniable. She had given the boy his voice. Now the choice rested in the father's trembling hands. Whether to condemn her for her lies or embrace the miracle she had brought into his silent world. The silence that followed was unlike any the mansion had ever known. It was not the heavy silence of grief, nor the suffocating silence of a child unable to speak. It was a silence trembling with awe, with possibility, with the weight of a miracle. The billionaire knelt, pulling his son into his arms as tears streamed down his face. His boy, his precious boy, had called him Da. The sound broke him and mended him all at once. Behind them, the maid stood frozen, her heart in her throat, afraid to move. She had risked everything, revealed everything, and now the truth stood bare between them. Her disguise was gone. All she had left was the fragile hope that her love for the boy would matter more than the lies that had brought her here. When the billionaire finally turned to face her, his expression was raw, stripped of all the arrogance wealth had built around him. His eyes burned with questions, with anger, but also with something softer. His voice was hoarse. "Why him? Why did you care enough to risk it all?" Her hands shook as she pressed them against her chest. "Because I saw myself in him, alone, trapped in silence, desperate to be heard. I couldn't walk away. Even if it cost me everything again, I wanted him to have what others tried to take from me. Hope." For a long moment, neither spoke. The boy wriggled in his father's arms and stretched a tiny hand toward her. His lips trembled, and then another word fell from them. "Ma." Her knees gave way as tears poured down her face. The boy had not only spoken, he had chosen her. The billionaire's chest tightened painfully as he looked between his son and the woman who had been more than a maid all along. Slowly he rose, carrying his son, and walked to her. He stopped just inches away, his voice breaking. "You healed him. You gave him what all the doctors, all the specialists, all the money in the world could not. And you did it not for recognition, not for gain, but for love." His eyes softened, though doubt still lingered. "I should throw you out for lying to me. But how can I, when every word my son speaks is because of you?" Her breath hitched, her tears endless. "I never wanted to deceive you. I only wanted to give him a chance." He looked down at his son, who nestled safely between them, whispering another faint word. "Fa. Me. Lee." The sound was broken, imperfect, but it hit them harder than any scream. The billionaire's eyes closed, his lips trembling. He whispered back, "Yes, family." From that day forward, the mansion was no longer a place of silence. It was filled with laughter, with practice words and clumsy sounds, with hope stitched into every corner. The billionaire, once a man hardened by loss, began to soften under the weight of gratitude and love. The maid, no longer just a servant, no longer hidden, found her place not as a doctor defined by a ruined past, but as a woman whose heart had healed more than a child's silence. Together, they rebuilt what grief had stolen, and the boy's voice became the anthem of a family reborn.